planted this here crop, the sorghum and sun hemp, just for this demonstration. Typically, we would not be planting this on June the 12th. This is just to show what the rolling and planting process can do. We've been doing it now we've been planting green for I think 7 years. We've had these rollers on for I believe 5 years. The first 2 years that we had done the planting green, we used a Brilliant Cultipacker. And the first year that I used was not planning to adopt the planting green. Well, I was, but not to the extent of 6 foot rye. It was one of those springs when it was extremely wet. And the rye kept growing and it kept growing. And after a bit I said, either we're going to have to spray this stuff and terminate it and know that we're going to have to wait for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks for this stuff to die. And so I talked to my good buddy Lucas Criswell. He's here today. He's on the board. I said, Lucas, what do I do with this cover crop? He said, just relax, Jim. It'll be all right. Yeah, well, that's hard to tell a guy that never did this 6 foot rye before and planning to plant green, did not have rollers on my planter. I thought I'd probably have it equipped properly to plant, but didn't know. So one day we go rent our neighbor's 30-foot cultipacker. Well, actually it wasn't 30. I think it was smaller than that because we tried to tie pipes on the end to cover 30 foot to cover the planter, and we thought we had to roll the same direction. So all that, I could stand here and write a book on that first year. But that was the year that I never turned back. Ever since that, I've been planting everything into as much biomass as I can find. This here planter will handle 8,000 pounds of biomass. And Ben Peckman's here, and we have Frank Stolzfus. I'm going to have a couple of these guys say just what their experience with planting green, because you can listen to me and say, well, you know, that guy's all full of it. But I want to tell you, and these guys will tell you that it does work. So I'm going to have Brian, I guess, come over here and just tell us a bit about what our fertility program is. Some guys have been asking about that. So,
all right, so overall we've been reducing our nitrogen rates, but we are finding that especially with the tall rye, the high carbon cover crop, we need more nitrogen up front. So we have 2 fertilizer systems on this corn planter. The front tank is for nitrogen, and it's set to do about 10 gallons per acre of liquid nitrogen, about 30 pounds. This spring we tried to go a little heavier, 12 to 16 gallons of nitrogen up front. Sometimes we put a little bit of sulfur in it. And then also we use a starter fertilizer, and that would be either like a 721-7, 624-6 we used this year. Sometimes we use nitrogen and water depending on what we're going into, and we'll go about 5 gallons total with that system. And that's in furrow. So I'll say something about the rollers. I don't have a lot of experience in the sorghum Sudan, so and we didn't have enough of it to test this, so I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go. And there are arguments among some of us here as to how much of the residue we want to move when we plant. And most guys think I move a little too much residue. So Lucas, I cranked up some of the row cleaners on the left side of the planter. The row cleaner should be lifted up a little more. The right side is where I would typically run them, but again, I don't know exactly how much it's going to move in this stuff.
all right, I'm going to have Ben Peckman just say a little bit about what he's been doing with his roller and what his experiences are.
He didn't tell me he's going to ask, so here we go. We started rolling probably about the same time Jim did 6 or 7 years ago. First year, we rented a I&J roller to, in a separate pass, roll the cover. And then that was just his added labor, added expense rolling as a separate action. So when we put the rollers on the planter, then that just opened up windows. You no longer had to worry about which direction you're rolling. getting the field planted as soon as you got a roller or anything like that. So just a definite benefit there. And I like to say, I used to worry about my cover crops controlling me or worry, they're going to take over. And now it's like Jim said, we look for as much biomass as absolutely possible. So now I no longer worry about the cover taking over, but I'm gonna be able to control it very easily.
Well, I'm probably the newest cover crop roller here because this is our first year that we tried to roll cover crops and plant in it. And our experience is just with cereal rye. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with multiple species, but I think that's the direction we're going. We had no-tilled since the late 90s, and we always used row cleaners and went right into our corn stubble that was planted in rye, but I always terminated first. And this year we didn't. And so the first that we planted, the first few days that we were planting, we had really good conditions in the end of April, and we were going through rye that was probably 16 to 20 inches tall. And man, we were cruising, and it was going good. And the next day, it was all standing back up again. And I called Jim and I said, "This isn't working very good." He said, "Well, just wait." So we did. And then it started to rain. Well, we did get that sprayed, and we didn't plant again, and then until May 22nd. And we got in that rye, and it was as tall as the tanks on the planter. I was in rye that was probably 4 and 5 and some 6 feet tall. And I just drove forward. Didn't look back too much, and it turned out pretty good. We tried to move as little soil as possible. We have the same rollers on that Jim has. Charlie Martin came down to our shop and helped us install them, and we have them set right at the very minimum. We're really not moving any dirt if we can help it. Just trying to push that cover off to the side, maybe 2 inches or so, and it's probably some of the best corn I've ever grown. And so we're going to just keep going forward. I will say, Jim also talked me into planting some rye on December 19th, and it was in frosted ground, and that's the rye that was 4 and 5 feet tall that I was planting in, and it really did do a nice job. Our fertilizer program is a bit different. We use a lot of beef manure, but we're also splitting our fertilizer, but we're putting 15 gallons of nitrogen on 2 inches to the side and dribbling it behind the closing wheels. And we're also using, much like Eric explained inside the tent, a mixture of nitrogen and water and a little bit of micronutrients on the furrow, and dribble that right down and put that right down on with the Keaton Firmer.